Bill Maher expected a spectacle. He got something far more disturbing. Kid Rock laughed. Dana White froze. Then Trump leaned in and said something that changed everything. No cameras, no spin, just raw, unfiltered truth. And once you hear what really went down, you'll question everything you thought you knew. Washington, D.C. Late evening. The kind of night where the air hangs heavy, thick with something unspoken. The South Lawn stretches in the distance, dark and quiet, a stark contrast to the man standing in front of the window, looking out like he sees something no one else does. Inside, the dining room hums with a different kind of tension. Not the explosive kind, but the slow-burning, unpredictable kind. The kind that makes you question why four men who should, by all means, be at each other's throats, are sitting down to dinner, instead. At the head of the table, in his signature stance, shoulders squared, chin slightly lifted, exuding the confidence of someone who believes he is history, sits Donald J. Trump, former president, media magnate, and the most polarizing figure of modern politics. Love him or hate him, his presence owns the room. He's in his element here, playing host. Yet there's something different tonight. A hesitation, a calculation, or maybe just exhaustion masquerading as reflection. Across from him, Bill Maher sits with his arms folded, his face an unreadable mask of curiosity and skepticism. The man built his career calling out hypocrisy, left, right, and center. He's sharp, unfiltered, and thrives on contradiction. And tonight, he's caught in one. He came here expecting the usual political theater. Instead, he's watching Trump talk, not to a rally, not to a camera, but to him, like a man with something real to say. To Bill's left, Kid Rock leans back in his chair, arms draped over the sides, exuding the kind of confidence only someone completely comfortable in chaos can have. The unapologetic, gravel-voiced, beer-drinking rock star who went from platinum albums to becoming an unlikely conservative icon. He's the wild card tonight, part provocateur, part mediator. He understands both sides of the cultural divide better than he lets on, and right now, he's just waiting to see if this night is going to turn into fireworks or something far stranger. And then there's Dana White, a few steps behind the conversation, arms crossed like he's weighing every word. The UFC mogul isn't a man of political debates, but he knows how to read people. And what he's reading now, a room full of men walking a tightrope between ego, ideology, and something that almost looks like understanding. Four men, one table, a past full of insults, viral moments, and ideological war-zone-s. And yet, here they are. Not yelling, not tweeting, not performing, just talking, and nobody in America knows about it. Yet, the tension in the room grew thick as the four men sat around the table, each ready for what was about to come. The small talk had ended. This was not just a casual dinner. It was about to get real. Bill Maher broke the silence, his voice firm. Let's get straight to it, Donald. You've built your whole career on dividing this country. You make everything about us versus them. So, tell me, where has that gotten us? Trump didn't budge. He stared back at Bill, his expression calm but serious. Bill, the problem is, you don't get it. You live in your bubble. You don't understand what the people outside want. They want someone to fight for them, even if it means shaking things up. Bill laughed, shaking his head. Oh, I get it, Donald. You've convinced a lot of people you're the voice of the working class. But what have you actually done for them? You've helped the rich and the big companies? The average person is still struggling. Trump's face tightened. He leaned in closer, his voice growing sharper. You want to talk about helping the rich? The whole system is broken, Bill, and you're part of the reason. The media, the politicians, they're all in on it. You can't stand that someone finally came along and exposed the truth. Bill's frustration was clear. Expose the truth? Expose the truth? You've turned the country into a circus. This isn't shaking things up. It's about ego, power, and making everyone else suffer. Kid Rock, who had been sitting back, crossed his arms and let out a small chuckle. You two are really going at it, huh? But let's be honest, Bill's right. This is a circus. But Donald, you're the ringmaster, and I'm not sure if the people are better off or just more entertained. Trump let out a laugh, clearly enjoying himself. Look, the people love me because I say what they're thinking. You don't get it, Bill. You're too busy hanging out with your rich friends to listen to the real people. Bill shot back quickly. The people love you because you've given them someone to blame. You've split everyone into us versus them to stay in power. You've got them fooled. Dana White, who'd been quiet, finally spoke. You guys are missing the point. It's not just about Trump or politics. It's about how people feel. They feel like no one is listening to them. That's why all this is happening, Bill scoffed. So you think Trump is the answer? He's made it worse. The lies, the drama, it's all a mess. Dana shrugged. Maybe it's not about fixing everything right away. Maybe it's about making people feel like someone finally cares. People trust him because he listens to them. Trump and Bill locked eyes, neither one backing down. I don't expect you to get it, Bill. You live in a world of facts and logic, but I'm out here with real people, giving them a voice. and they'll keep backing me because I'm not afraid to fight. Bill leaned forward, his fists tight. Fighting isn't the issue, Donald. The problem is you fight without purpose. You've divided this country. It's impossible to even talk to each other anymore. And that's your legacy, isn't it? There was a moment of silence as Trump took in Bill's words. Finally, Kid Rock broke the tension, his voice blunt as always. Maybe the problem is you two can't stop fighting each other. You're so busy yelling at each other, you forget the real fight is with the system that keeps everyone apart. Dana nodded. Exactly. The problem isn't the fights. It's that no one is trying to find common ground. And you two seem more interested in winning than listening. Trump looked at Bill again, clearly annoyed, but there was something in his eyes now, something like doubt. Bill could see it. For a moment, the hard exterior cracked, and in that moment, Bill wasn't sure if they were talking about politics anymore or something deeper, something that neither of them wanted to admit. But it was clear. The real fight wasn't just about politics, it was about power. The tension in the room had reached its peak. Words had been thrown like daggers, cutting deeper with each insult. Everyone was on edge, waiting for the next blow. But then, something unexpected happened. Kid Rock, who had been mostly silent, leaned back in his chair, a look of contemplation crossing his face. His usual cocky demeanor seemed to fade as he began to speak. You know, all this noise, this constant fighting and bickering, it's getting old, Kid Rock said, his voice quieter than usual. When's it gonna stop? I mean, are we all just gonna keep screaming at each other? Or are we gonna realize how tired we are of all this? Everyone's so focused on tearing each other down, no one stops to think, hey, maybe we've been doing this wrong. The room fell silent. Everyone, even Trump, turned to look at him. Bill Maher, who had been preparing for another round of sarcastic banter, was taken aback. For the first time in what seemed like hours, the usual back and forth had stopped. Bill was almost hesitant. You know, Kid Rock, Bill began, his tone shifting. I think you might be onto something. We've all been caught up in this endless cycle of arguing, and honestly, it feels exhausting. Maybe it's time we all just stop, breathe, and listen. We've been so busy fighting, we haven't even realized we're all just people. All of us. For a moment, no one said anything. The tension in the room wasn't gone, but something had shifted. Trump, who had been quiet for longer than anyone could remember, finally broke his silence. His usual bravado was gone. His voice, when it came, was softer, less forceful. You're right, Trump said slowly, almost as if he was hearing his own words for the first time. I get tired of it too. It's not just the insults. It's the constant attacks. The idea that everything I've done doesn't matter. It gets to you after a while. People don't see the work behind it all. All they see is the mistakes, the things they want to tear down. This wasn't the Trump anyone was used to. The man who always had a response for everything, the man who would never show vulnerability, was now admitting something personal, something real. Kid Rock nodded, his face serious. Exactly. People don't get it. They think it's all a game, a show, but it's not. We're all in this together, trying to make our way in the world, and it's hard, no matter who you are. Dana, who had been quietly listening to the back and forth, spoke up, his voice calm but firm. You know, we've all been caught up in the noise, the constant fighting. Maybe what we need is to just talk, to stop attacking and actually listen to each other. We're all human. We all have our struggles, our wins, our losses. Bill Maher leaned forward, his tone softening. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's time we just listen. Stop with the insults. Stop with the division. We've spent too long building walls between us. Maybe it's time to tear them down, even if just for a moment. For the first time that night, the energy in the room changed. The shouting had stopped, the insults faded, and for a fleeting moment, they weren't political figures or celebrities. They were just people, sitting together, trying to make sense of the world around them. The walls of hostility began to crumble, replaced by an understanding that, despite their differences, they all shared a common experience, a desire for connection, for peace, for something real. It wasn't a grand shift. It wasn't a sudden moment of unity, but it was something, a crack in the armor, a moment of honesty in a room that had been filled with bravado and anger. And maybe, just maybe, that moment was the first step towards something better. Donald Trump sat back, rubbing his temples, his usual swagger absent. The earlier arguments, sharp, biting, had slowly started to die down. What was left now was the raw, aching truth that neither side could escape. He glanced at Bill Maher, then at Kid Rock and Dana White. The conversation had shifted, veering away from jabs and barbs towards something deeper, something almost unspoken. You know, Bill Maher began, his voice quieter now, less snarky than usual. We've spent years yelling at each other. We've been on the front lines of this cultural war, throwing grenades, but at the end of the day, what are we fighting for? There was a long silence before Trump leaned forward, his hands steepled together like a man on the verge of a confession. We're fighting for the future of this country, for the people who feel left behind, he said. His voice, usually bombastic and filled with self-assurance, now seemed to carry the weight of uncertainty. for the forgotten middle, the ones who don't get heard in all this noise. Kid Rock, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, let out a slow exhale. Yeah, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's not just about who's going to win the next election. It's about what we're willing to tolerate, how far we're willing to go. We've all been complicit in it. Politics is about power, who gets to shape the narrative, and who gets left out. Dana White adjusted in his seat, his arms crossed, his stance defensive but thoughtful. It's more than just politics. It's society itself. The system is broken. The game's rigged. Both sides want the same thing, but they refuse to admit it. The establishment wins every time. Doesn't matter who's in charge. A tense pause hung in the air as each man processed this, their sharp ideological differences somehow bridged by this shared frustration. The tension that had once been about politics, about who's right and who's wrong, had now shifted into something more uncomfortable, into the realization that none of them had all the answers. Maybe that's the issue, Bill said, his eyes narrowing. We keep focusing on who's right and who's wrong, but we never talk about the bigger picture, the fact that none of this works for the majority of people anymore. There's no one truth, not anymore. Trump let out a heavy sigh, a touch of bitterness creeping into his voice. I didn't get here by playing it safe, Bill. I didn't take the conventional route, and I didn't play by the rules. But somewhere along the line, we started believing that the rules were the only way. And the truth is, the rules are failing us, big time. Kid Rock chuckled darkly, shaking his head. Well, damn, man, you're finally saying it. No one's gonna fix it, not the way things are going now. Everyone's stuck in their lane. The media, the politicians, the people, they all got their script, their role to play. They just keep following it. The conversation seemed to be boiling over like a pot about to spill its contents, but instead of raising their voices again, the words came slower, more deliberate. Bill paused, sensing the shift. Maybe we're all too deep in this, too embedded in the system, he said, his gaze intense. But the thing is, we're all asking the same questions in different ways. What's next? What comes after all of this? Trump's eyes flickered toward him. The next phase, the next chapter, is chaos. Maybe that's what's needed. We've been so afraid of chaos we forgot that it's the only thing that ever brings change. The system, it's stale. It's a machine that keeps grinding no matter who's in charge. And maybe, just maybe, the chaos is what will finally break it. There was an unexpected weight to his words. It wasn't the usual bravado. It was something darker, more reflective, and for a moment, they were all silent, each man deep in thought, processing what had been said. Dana White, who had been quiet for the longest time, spoke next. His tone was more measured than usual, though it carried the same fire. Change isn't going to come from the top down. It's not going to come from the people at the top pulling strings. It's going to come from the people who are sick of being ignored, who feel that everything's rigged against them, and they're tired. People don't trust the system anymore. You've got a country full of people who want something real, something they can believe in again. Bill nodded thoughtfully. That's where we are now. There's no simple fix. We can't just tear it all down and rebuild. Maybe we need to learn how to listen to each other first. Not just shout over each other, but listen. Trump, almost reluctantly, nodded. I didn't always get it right, Bill. Hell, I still don't. But listening is hard, especially when people don't want to hear the truth. The conversation lingered on this idea, the uncomfortable reality that maybe listening, really listening, was what the world needed most. It was a bitter pill for each of them to swallow, but one they couldn't ignore. They had all become so caught up in winning the argument, in proving their point, that they'd forgotten the importance of hearing the other side. For the first time that evening, the atmosphere had shifted from combative to contemplative, and while the battle wasn't over, there was still much to resolve. The walls had come down, just a little. Maybe, just maybe, there was a flicker of common ground. The tension at the dinner table had reached a boiling point. Everyone was on edge, and no one was holding back anymore. Trump, typically deflecting any direct attacks, now sat with a rare seriousness. His eyes scanned the faces of Bill Maher, Kid Rock, and Dana White. He wasn't ready to just let this pass anymore. Trump, you guys think you've got all the answers, huh? Sitting up here in your ivory towers, judging everything I do. But none of you understand what it's like to be where I am, to carry the weight of this country on your shoulders. You think you know what people need, but you don't know them. You don't feel it. Bill Maher didn't flinch. He had heard this line before, Trump's typical defense. But this time, there was a different energy. There was something real behind his words, something that made Bill pause for a moment before responding. Bill Maher. Oh, I get it, Donald. I do. The weight of the world, the pressure, the constant scrutiny. But the difference between you and me is, I don't pretend I'm some savior just because I'm sitting at the top. I've seen how you handle things. You use that power to stir up the anger, to fan the flames of division. You don't fix things, you make it worse. Trump's expression darkened, but before he could fire back, Dana White interjected, a calm voice cutting through the storm. Dana White, look, we're not going to get anywhere if we keep shouting over each other. There's something deeper here, something personal. The country isn't just divided because of politics. It's because everyone's losing trust in the system. And that starts with people like you, Trump. People who use the office to further their own agenda, instead of doing what's best for the people. The room went quiet. Even Kid Rock, who had been drinking and laughing, suddenly stopped, sensing the shift in tone. For a moment, everyone sat in uncomfortable silence, their individual views crashing against each other, no one willing to budge. Kid Rock, I've been in a lot of rooms like this. Politicians, celebrities, all of them talk a big game about change. But in the end, no one gives a damn about the regular guy. Everyone's too busy trying to hold on to their power, their money, their fame. Trump, Bill, you all got your own reasons for doing what you do. But at the end of the day, none of it helps the people. Trump looked at Kid Rock, his anger tempered now. It was clear the musician wasn't just speaking out of turn, he was speaking truth. Trump, so, what do you want me to do, huh? Hand everything over? Turn everything into a kumbaya moment? You think the people would even listen to that? Bill Maher, no, but maybe, just maybe, they want to feel like they matter. They want leaders who give a damn about them, not just about staying in power. It was a raw moment, unfiltered and honest. In a room filled with men who had been used to manipulating the narrative, the truth hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. No one had a direct answer. Trump, maybe I don't have all the answers, but you all don't either. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on anyone. The dinner had shifted from a political debate to a stark confrontation of truths. What had started as a battle of egos had become something more profound. A recognition that, despite the differences, the stakes were higher than any of them had imagined. The air in the room had shifted. The fiery debate had burned itself out, leaving behind the smoldering embers of quiet realization. The plates were half finished, the drinks were nearly empty, but no one was in a hurry to speak. For the first time all night, there was no shouting, no snark, no clever one-liners, just a silence that felt heavier than any of the words exchanged. Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table, lost in thought. He wasn't used to Trump actually listening, even if, for just a second. Kid Rock swirled his drink, staring at the ice cubes as if searching for some kind of answer. Dana White, the perpetual mediator, was watching everyone, studying their faces. And Trump, well, Trump was quiet. Dana White broke the silence first. You know, I think the problem is, we're all too busy trying to win the argument instead of trying to fix the problem. Bill smirked, but didn't argue. For once, Dana, you might have a point. Trump exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Look, I don't regret anything I've done. I did what I thought was best. But maybe, just maybe, I don't always have to be the one who's right. That was as close to an admission as anyone would ever get from him. And strangely, it didn't feel hollow. Kid Rock chuckled, shaking his head. Man, I don't know what's crazier. The fact that we just spent hours arguing, or the fact that I actually feel like I get where you guys are coming from. Bill raised his glass. Welcome to the real world, kid. There was no grand conclusion, no perfectly tied-up resolution. Just a table full of men who, for all their differences, had found a way to sit together, argue, listen, and, against all odds, respect one another, even if just a little. As the conversation slowed, the tension was replaced by something unexpected. Mutual acknowledgement. Not agreement, not compromise, just a quiet understanding that, at the end of the day, none of them had all the answers. Trump leaned forward, looking at Bill. We still don't like each other, right? Bill smirked. Not even a little. Trump grinned. Good. Dana laughed, raising his glass. To the most dysfunctional dinner conversation in history. They clinked glasses, each of them knowing that nothing had changed, yet everything had. And for now, that was enough. And as the plates cleared and the night grew quieter, something unexpected lingered in the air, something even louder than the debates that shook the table just hours earlier. It wasn't the voice of Trump echoing a belief, or Maher's sarcasm landing hard. It wasn't Kid Rock's rebellion, or Dana White's unapologetic tone. It was silence, that rare kind, the one that follows after truths are said out loud, the kind that doesn't ask for applause, just understanding. These four men, who couldn't be more different, somehow managed to meet at a table, and walk away carrying pieces of each other's perspectives. And maybe that's the real shocker here, not the jokes, not the politics, but that, even in a time when the world seems hell-bent on dividing us, this dinner proved something. You don't need to agree to understand. You don't need to surrender your beliefs to sit down, listen, and walk away changed. So now the question isn't what they said. The question is, what will you take from it? Because maybe, just maybe, the conversation you're avoiding is the one that could change everything. Now, what would you say if you were at that table?